Hi guys, this is me, Pavel. This is my first video recording like this. I'm going to try this new LLM model for coding called Sonnet 4.5. Already tried it, it's quite good. So I thought it would be quite interesting to show you guys what it can do on a real example. Like the challenge is, I recently saw someone playing this game OpenFront.io. It's a multiplayer game where you fight to dominate the map. And I thought, oh, that's quite interesting from the technical perspective. I wonder how they did it. So I tried like figure out, okay, they're using WebSockets, what is the state of the game, and so on. So I thought that it would be quite interesting to see how far we can go, what we can do in 1 hour using a coding assistant like Sonnet 4.5. So that would be quite interesting. Like if we can do something similar. I know that it won't be exactly the same, but it will be a good test for the coding model. So let's first try to write a brief that we want to do. I already started the Claude on the left. So the brief is basically I have this custom of writing down the plan on my own. I expanded with the AI many times, but the first plan is mine. I want to basically set up some requirements, what technologies I want to use, and so on. So let's try to set up like the technologies they want to use. So the first thing I would say is like I want to build a single player for now game similar to Open Front, where you dominate the map against AI opponents. So that's the first, the most important probably sentence. Um, what I want to do now is basically say what are my requirements for the technologies. I'm a big Rust fan, so I'm going to use Rust for the front end. So the requirements are Rust backend. I'm not going to choose the framework. I want to see what Claude will come up with. I want to use TypeScript slash maybe React, but I'm not sure because this game is almost whole canvas. So I'm not sure if the front-end framework really matters here, but let's stick with React. The reason why I chose TypeScript is because typically I use some kind of like SDK generator from Rust that generates the types for TypeScript. So when the TypeScript communicates with the backend, it communicates with the right types. So that's very important for the stability of your solution. You basically want to compile everything, including frontend, and you want to share the types from the Rust backend to the TypeScript. So this is good. So like, let's say that this is the front end. I want to use WebSockets. Of course, this is a real-time communication. It would be not really good to use anything else. I don't want to say too much. Like I don't want to bias the model. I want to see what it can come up with. So I don't want also to say what are my requirements for the game. I want to see the expanded brief from Claude and see how it will think about this problem, what features it will add. So I already told it that it's a single player game, so that's probably limiting a little bit because like we cannot communicate with other users. We will only communicate with the server. Okay, so let's actually try this. Try Claude on this prompt. So what I typically do is I put every research that I'm doing, everything that is a document I'm putting in the docs. So I want him to please analyze docs brief MD and expand it with more details I can look at, and focus on the game logic to make it interesting. Write down your plan in brief, expanded MD. Also add, yeah. Also ask me mm, clarification questions if you need. Okay, so let's see what it can come up with. One thing I noticed is that Claude is pretty fast. It's pretty fast. It's much. I tried it. I tried GPT-5 before, and it's also quite good, but I feel it's not as fast as Claude. Oh, it wants to it wants to fetch OpenFront.io, which is interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. One thing that I want to say, I probably won't be able to record this in one go, so it will be probably 1 hour video, but not 1 hour of my continuous time. So, so I mentioned that it wants to fetch OpenFront.io and it wants to search. So that's quite good. What I missed in a lot of the coding agents so far is the ability to search. Basically, if you want to do some quick research and you don't want to just open Chrome to do it manually, it's a very handy feature to have the agent do it for you. So it found 10 results that it analyzes right now. Yeah, I wonder what it can come up with. What I liked about Claude that you can, I think it was already in the previous versions, but you can write down your comments while it's going, and it will take them into account once it makes like a short break in its reasoning. So yeah, it has a good understanding of OpenFront.io. Mm, and it wants to create an expanded brief as I asked it. So that's pretty good. Of course, like I'm joking, it's probably every model could do it, but here I see that I noticed that Claude 4.5 is pretty good, or sorry, Sonnet 4.5 is pretty good in terms of like architecture, planning. I like that it includes code snippets in its solutions, so I can read through the plans and basically understand what its plan is. Okay, so it wants to create this brief expanded MD. So let's accept it. And we can read it in our IDE. Okay, so let me analyze this. It also added its comments. Oh, it asked 25 clarification questions. I'm not sure we're going to answer all of them. Map structure, grid-based, region-based with territories, provinces, ownership, victory condition, total population, current units versus maximum capacity, population growth, passive generational rate per second and tick, unit allocation is for attacking, gold, currency, income rate, cost scaling. So yeah, I mean, like I'm not going to read it all for you. It will be quite boring, but I'm just skimming over it to see if I see something that is obviously wrong. But so far, I cannot see anything wrong. Core structure, city, defense, posts, production buildings, easy, medium, early game, mid game, late game. So I see it's pretty comprehensive already. This expanded brief is what, like, it's 200 lines of documentation, but I see that it's pretty good. Communication of sockets. Mm, yeah, so let's answer the questions here because it asked us some questions. No, I want procedurally generated terrain. How many I count like answer? I think 8 is a good number. Game duration, variable game duration, I would say. Equal. So do all players start equal or should there be asymmetric starts? I think equal. Fog of War. Answer, no Fog of War. Attack speed. Um, oh, this is interesting because it wants to create units. I'm not sure if unit is a good thing because what I saw OpenFront.io, it's like a flood. There are no units per se. There is like territory, and each territory I think is um, has assigned number of units, and it's like almost if you have 100,000 soldiers, you can attack anything, any territory, anytime you want, and it's like there are no units. So I can say this that mm, oh, like, but it's interesting. I think it's a good um, diversification of the problem. I think it could try to create units, like battalions or whatever. Mm, attack speed. How should it should be? I say it should be variable. Answer: I don't know. I don't know what should be the exact combat. Simultaneous attack. Yes. It can attack territories. Retreating. No. Building limits. Okay, so I I don't want to answer all of the questions. I want um, the AI to come up with its own ideas. One thing I want to guarantee is that the Rust uses my comments. My comments. Rust must use. Uh, Typa is a library in Rust that annotates API endpoints, so they are we can expose the um, types via SDK, auto-generated SDK. So that's pretty important for me. Uh, the Rust backend must expose slash generate SDK types for frontend. Mm, so everything is type safe. That's a very important thing for me. In like a job, like you want your code to be very stable That's why I love Rust. It's very stable, it's type safe, and you want to kind of promote the stability throughout your system. You don't want to suddenly forget that you have types in your system when you are using TypeScript. Like the name has types in it, so it also has types. It's a little bit weaker than Rust in terms of like data modeling, but TypeScript is quite good as it like in combination with Rust. So I want to answer here that I answered some questions, but please answer the rest as best as you can. This is a quick prototype. Prototype. I also added my comments. Mm, mhm. Mainly about type safety and SDK that must be generated from Rust. Yeah. In the meantime, let's look at the rest of the plan. Yeah. So again, I don't want to read all of it. I want to test the raw strength of the AI. Replay system, no, no. Yeah. So let's edit the expanded brief with AI answers. And now let's focus on the backend. Like the backend is the most important part, or maybe in this case, the front end and how the canvas looks is as important as the backend. But the backend is like the backbone of the project. You want to get it right, and then it will be much easier to do in the front end if you have everything done very well. So this it already defined the type, which is a game state, which is very good. I didn't mention it, but I'm happy that it did mention it. It defined the client messages as a Rust enum. So Rust enums are basically a type that, as opposed to a class, is variants basically of different types. So enums are very powerful. They're one of the strengths of Rust, and I think like after a while you cannot live without them, basically. So I see that it defined the client message. So this is the message that is sent from the front end to the backend. It does not include the user ID, but because it's a single player game. Later on, if we wanted to make it multiplayer, this message would have to include some kind of identifier. Okay, so the server message includes the whole state of game state, basically, and results of attacks, notifications, game over. What I don't like about this is that, I mean, for prototype it can be okay, but for production use, you want to use deltas with some kind of like a mechanism to guarantee that you arrive at the same game state on the front end. Because if the number of messages is pretty large and you have like hundreds of messages per minute or like some small time frame, Sending over the whole game state, we have whole map to send, all territories, all player states. It's pretty intensive, but let's leave it like here. I'm not going to comment on this. So it defined this build file. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Compile time safety, that's okay. Single source of truth. What I don't like about this, yeah, let's try it like it proposes. I'm not sure if I like TypeScript generating the types, but maybe it's good. Yeah, so let's edit this. Okay, so to summarize what we have, uh, I wrote a brief, which was like 2 sentences or 1 sentence, and the second was the requirements about the technology. What we got from Claude is 400 lines document with the my brief expanded, with game logic included, attack system, defense mechanisms, some other more detailed descriptions. It included 8 difficulty levels, strategies, the game phases, which is pretty interesting, decision points, backend trust. Then it asked me a lot of questions, which I answered maybe half of them, and I asked it to come up with its own answers. And it defined this next step. So I treat it like maybe as a to do, and I see that it's already going through this list, as I see on the left. By the way, the reason why I'm not using Claude inside uh, this Rust IDE, Rust rover, is because I don't like this internal terminal. It's very glitchy, so that's why I use the Claude on the side in a separate terminal. It's much easier to control. Yeah, so then it included the expanded ideas I had about type safety, which is very good. Some basic types, generation of types for the front end, the project structure, which I like this very much. It gives a nice overview of the structure of your project. And then like how to develop it. So let's accept, by the way, like I'm reading it for you guys, but if I wanted to like make the game as quickly as possible, I wouldn't even read this. I would just let it code. The reason why I think it's very important to read through the plans is because like it's measure once, cut twice. Measure twice, cut once. Basically, the better your plan is, the less effort it will take for you to implement the solution. Okay. Okay, so let's make your own decisions, and let's start implementing the backend first. So Anthropic says that Claude can go 30 hours nonstop in some kind of focus mode. I don't think it's quite like true, because if you want to use Claude in the production for your own personal or company projects, there is no way it can code for 30 hours without your supervision. You have to control what it writes, and sometimes it makes a very strange decisions, and you have to basically straighten them. So it wants to create some folders. I will allow it to make similar commands on its own. I don't want to accept everything like this. So I see that it created this backend project. Yes, let's allow this kind of changes. So let's look at this. It uses Tokyo, which is asynchronous library. It uses Axum for the web server. Everything looks fine apart from the versions. Probably those versions are, like most of them you could update. So let's see. But I won't do it. I will let it compile the project and then see that a version is not good. What I noticed, by the way, about coding agents is that from, I think, day one, which I consider GPT 3.5 or GPT-4, is that like those AI models are very good at Rust for some reason. I'm not sure if it's because Rust is very verbose, you have types, there are a lot of syntax. There is a lot of syntax which kind of like is unique to Rust, and maybe that's why those models learn it much quicker than other languages. Okay, so as I mentioned, also it's very fast. Like it created the requirements, module structure, and now it's writing um, types. And these are not small files. You can see that one file is 200 lines, another 85, and 200, 153. So it's pretty fast. I would say that I'm quite impressed with the speed of the of Claude. So let me maybe minimize this to see more code. So it uses anyhow, which I like. Anyhow is like a simplified error type, which does not require you to create your error type, which is convenient. It's maybe not the best for production because you cannot control the types of your errors, but it's still good. Okay, so let's continue. I see that Claude has created a way to export the types specification from the backend to an open API JSON file. So let's allow it to try it. And now I expect, after it's created, I expect a lot of errors, basically. But let's see how many. So right now, it will try to compile the backend. So let's try it. let's try also on our own, so we can see the like we can see the errors as well. Oh, I'm a little bit faster. I ran a cargo check before a Claude. I see there are 2 errors, so it's not bad. Okay, so some immutability errors. That should be pretty easy to solve. Also, let's try. Let's see how many lines of code it wrote. No, 46,000 lines of code. That's not correct. Let's check the source files. Okay, so the backend so far has about 1,000 lines of code, 1,500 lines of code. So it's pretty small. Okay, so it's recalculating and the backend compiles now, which is pretty nice. Yeah, so now it's creating a README file, which is always a good idea. Okay, let's try running it on our own. Maybe we don't have to compile it, run it with this release log because it will be considerably slower to compile. And right now the speed of the Rust backend is not crucial, so there is a Swagger UI, and let's see it. Okay, so the Swagger UI shows all the types that were exported. So you can see there are some reference errors, which will be solved after it tries to export the types. So what we are interested in the backend are client messages and server messages, and of course game state, game stats, all are quite important. So that's nice that it works. And now now let it create the frontend. But before it creates the front, I want to see the SDK that it creates from the backend types. Please create the SDK for TypeScript based on the Open API specs. So the reason why I wanted to create those SDK types is that for me there are like 3 steps to develop this kind of an application. So backend, exporting the types to SDK in the TypeScript, and then frontend. So I want to see exactly the types that it can create. So it wants to run the export of the Open API JSON file. I want it to become like a makefile command. Create a makefile make command, make file command that does this. Like, okay. So it created the make file with useful commands, building the backend, building the front end, exporting the types, creating the SDK, running both backend and the front end, which is quite nice to have. It also succeeded in creating the JSON specs. Let me install a plugin for this. Hmm. Okay, so I reformatted the code. So what we have here is basically like some kind of a JSON schema of the Rust types. And based on this, we want to create an SDK. So again, before it creates anything more, I wanted to create the SDK based on the Open API JSON, create an SDK in the front end folder and add it as the command. So this is like a typical chain. I'm also simplifying the project a lot. I'm not adding any in the if it was released. No. So what I'm saying is that it's already wrong. It tries to create the types in the TypeScript project manually. So I will interrupt it. So I want those types to be auto-generated from the Open API JSON. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So so it tried to create a very like it would be a very big mistake to manage the types manually like this. What we want to do instead is always export the types and the code from the Open API just to like automate the process. It would be enough to change something in the backend. Uh, and this is also not good because the client is probably something that it can auto-generate too. No, even the client should be auto-generated. We want to have a client, types, and services. So you can see that it tried to do the right thing by creating the types, but it can create the whole SDK, not only the types. Okay, so I'm not very happy about the decisions that it makes around the type interop between the Rust and the TypeScript. Okay, so let me pause for 1 second. I will get back to this with a proper solution for SDK creation. Okay, I think I know what was happening. Basically, one of the make file run the server, but right now the server does not compile even. Sorry, like in the backend. So the server doesn't compile, which means that the export of the open API won't work, and it works. And it turned out that there was a cached or some old version of the server still running on localhost, which still exported the wrong schema. So we were fixing a problem that was basically does not exist, and the AI was confused why the changes don't work. So that would be like the summary of this, and probably I will skip this whole debugging session because this is just not very representative of the work that you have to do. Or maybe it is. So problems like this also happen. Um, so I will explain what is happening right now. So the problem is that we are still running some old version of the server on port 1000, and our changes were not even compiling. So that's a pretty, and there was this mistake that I think this should not this should not succeed because the cargo run does not work. So please make sure that the make file actually starts the server. Okay, so what is unfortunate is that we have made so many changes looking for this issue, and some of the changes were not very good. But yeah, so right now it's kind of reverting those changes, mm, creating this wrapper type. Let's see if this works. Okay, so at least it compiled. Uh, yeah, and it's killing the server, which is good, but it's not killing it before. So yeah. Okay, so is our SDK working now? That's the real question. Yay, it works. And this is what I like to see. So basically we have exported types in TypeScript that represent our backend types. And the most important ones are the messages, the state of the game, and other types are also important. But the ones that we are the most interested in are the messages, because this will be the messages that are exchanged between the server and the frontend to run our game. So our cost so far is $17. I mean, probably half of it was spent on debugging this issue, but I will forget about it. Okay, so let me clean the context before, because if the types are generated, this means that we can continue working on the front end almost in isolation. What this means is that sometimes when I used my own coding agent, I sometimes limited the context to only look for the context within certain folders. And once the API is generated, we don't have to look back into the backend for context, because the types that are here and the code that is here represents the whole backend. Basically, like the messages that are exchanged and the types, these are all uh, sufficient to develop the front-end application. Of course, like if something is wrong in the logic of the game, we still have to resolve it in the backend, but to make it compile it in the TypeScript, you have to only deal with those types. So let me clear the context so we don't pay for it too much. And now, like, please continue the implementation of the front end based on our new SDK frontend source API. Is there something we need to refer? Probably we need to refer to this expanded brief. Please refer to expanded brief. Make the UI beautiful. Cool. Okay. Okay, so I see that the front end was built. It took a couple of minutes to build, but basically I wrote to continue the implementation of the front end based on our new SDK that we just generated, and that it should refer to the our brief and make the UI beautiful. So I can see that it's certain things. And now let's try something that probably it didn't thought about, which is building the front end. And of course, there are some errors, which we must fix. So please run npm run build and fix the errors, and also create make test which does this too. Yeah, so this is uh, these are small errors, but still we need to fix them. Let's look also at our front-end code. So we have game map, connection status, and so on. So that makes sense. The game map is pretty small. I wonder how, yeah, I see. I wonder how it does this, that it's so small. Maybe it's not so complex. Should probably ask to write tests for the backend. Okay, so I see a problem when starting the server. It's some other process, probably our own server, wasn't closed properly, so I need to close it. So I can ask, please make fix the make dev to kill the process that runs on port 3000 before it starts the backend, just to clear any service that was running before. Yeah, so overall, apart from my mistake or Claude mistake not to close the server before it runs and compiles the project or SDK, you see that it's pretty fast. I think before without our error that we needed to debug, we would spend probably 30 minutes of the time. Oh, actually, it's a little bit more. The API time is 60 minutes. 6,000, 7,000 lines added. So let's try to run our game. So I expect a lot of problems still with the WebSockets, but let's try. Okay, so the game should run on this part. Okay, that's the first thing I see. Um, which is pretty interesting. It's not what I meant as a game, but it's quite interesting. I'm not sure also what to do in the game. I don't see any way to zoom in or zoom out. Also, the territories are like connected graph, which is interesting, but it's not. It doesn't look like. It doesn't look like usable game now, but it's still very impressive because yeah, I can. What can I do here? Okay. Okay. So I see. So this is me. I have some army which grows. When I click on the territory that is close, it says target territory has no owner. So that's a mistake. But let's look at the communication between the front end and the back end. So let me restart this. And you can see that the game communicates the game state. The server communicates the game state every what, like 1 second or something like this. Um, I see that like the A personalities have types: aggressor, rusher, opportunist. Mm, Overall, I think that I don't think that taking new territories works because I don't see any other AI. Yeah, game time is not updating. Uh, my income is growing. That is fine. Hmm. That is quite interesting. First try. Um, I like the UI. It's pretty well balanced. Like there are 1,000 ways to improve it, but um, okay. So what we should do now is probably debug the game, the front end. I see that I cannot occupy any new territory. Yeah, so this okay, this mhm, tak. So I see that boom boom. So I see that attack messages are sent, but no new territory is taken. Um, yeah, AA5. AA5 Rusher has 0 population, so that's not good for them. Hmm. Okay. So this will be a good time to basically start debugging this and tracking the errors that we have. So let me do a couple of notes about the errors. So errors, or I can write it in the in Claude. Okay, so let me write it in Claude. First error. There are errors in the game UI. First error is I cannot take any territories, and so does any other AI. Some AI have 0 population. The game map should be a map of territories as opposed to opposed to a graph. So please make a more map like UI. Yeah, so let's start with those errors and see what happens. I see water terrains, forests, troops. Okay. So it started creating Voronoi polygons, which should look more like a map. Yeah. So it's still fixing the front end. Okay. Fix something. Okay. So now it probably still fixes certain things. Because I see that hit regions of those territories are not correct, which needs to be fixed. So I will say hit regions of Voronoi cells are offset, and only not all borders are highlighted. So let me send this. It will be picked up when it finishes the action it's doing right now. Um, Okay, I see that some AI, and including me, there is a limit of population 10,000. And army may be related to the territory. Okay, so I see that the hit regions are already fixed. Okay, but the attacking new regions is still not fixed. Uh, okay, so let me restart the server because I think I'm not sure if there were some server changes. Not sure. Okay, let me. The borders are still not highlighted properly, so the bottom of the territory is hidden under other territories. Mm, so let me restart the server. Okay. Okay, so let me. When I try to attack a new territory, it says. Okay. Now the boundaries or borders are overlapping lines. Okay, so hmm, okay. What says the game should be now fully playable? It's not true. Let's restart game. Oh, the colors are okay. So I think that okay. There is one Russia which has 46 territories and 10,000 army. I have a lot of gold, but I don't Didn't attack anyone. Hmm. One territory. So I asked it to change the logic so one player should occupy one territory at the beginning. Uh, okay, let's restart. Actually, this shell. Okay, so let's summarize what we have achieved in 1 hour. We went from brief, that was one sentence of the game description. I referred to OpenFront.io as the game I want to base this project on. I set up some requirements, which is Rust on the backend, TypeScript frontend. Between the Rust and TypeScript, there is this SDK generated, which is quite important for like your peace of mind, basically. Um, and it uses WebSockets, and the result is not perfect. I don't think we would expect the game to be perfect, but you can see that I can occupy some territories here by clicking on them. Yeah, so it's probably the game logic is a little bit broken because I don't see any AI occupying more than one territory. So probably there are some bugs still which need to be figured out. But this is a result of 1 hour work. Um, Backend in Rust, TypeScript frontend, WebSocket communication. You can see it's updating in real time. So I think it's pretty impressive. It's a good starting point, obviously, to continue a project like this. But other than that, I think Claude and Sonnet 4.5 is like an excellent model. It's very quick, very strong, but still you have to take a look at what the plan is. And yeah, so if you want me to work on this project more, to maintain it maybe, and improve it, like debug and so on, just let me know in the comments and maybe we'll do that. I will post the source code of this project on GitHub so you can take a look as well. Thank you. Bye bye.